An African safari offers one of the most elemental experiences on the planet, a primal connection to wilderness that strikes a deep chord within and electrifies us forever after. At IWorld to Travel, we felt this and want to share it with you. Come explore with us for a memories beyond adventure. Wherever you want to experience the wonder of Africa, from Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda to South Africa and Zimbabwe, we have boots on the ground in the top safari destinations with expertise second to none. The Serengeti, the Masai Mara Reserve, Ngorongoro, Bwindi National Park, and dozens of others. The names conjure images of wildlife herds running free, a pageantry of exquisite beasts, set against golden sunrises and glowing sunsets, along with lavish feasts and luxury accommodations. That's not all. We'll show you Africa in fascinating cities like Cape Town and Nairobi, and natural wonders like the spectacular Victoria Falls. We'll show you beaches like you've never seen before, and landscapes that will drop your jaw. Once you feel the warmth and welcome of the African people, you'll want to return again and again. We promise. Our custom trips are drawn from a menu of enticing experiences with something interesting for everyone. This is Michael Gelber, CEO IWorld to Travel, inviting you to experience memories beyond destinations. IWorld to Travel. Expect more. Do more.
Hello from Tanzania. It's my pleasure to announce to you that since end of May, Tanzania has reopened its borders, and the international flights started landing in Kilimanjaro and Zanzibar, particularly Ethiopian Airlines. Our lodges are ready to receive you, and all necessary precautions are in place to ensure your security and health. Right now, the migration is in full swing, on its way to the Mara River, waiting for your arrival. Karibu, Tanzania.
Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're coming in from. My name is Michael Gelber. I am the CEO of IWorld to Travel, and we appreciate everybody participating in our day 2 of our 3-day series for Africa. Yesterday was South Africa, and today is Tanzania, and we are honored to have with us today Romain Dubai, who is our trusted partner in Tanzania, and we've had a very good relationship with him, and I think you're going to find the presentation to be exceptionally interesting. We also have a recorded message from the director of the Tanzania Tourism Board, which will be coming up in a few minutes. If I could, this webinar will last about 60 to 75 minutes. All questions, please just ask as many as you like, and we will at the end answer every single question and direct it towards the individual who it is most appropriate for. And let me just say a quick thing about Romain. Romain has been unbelievable for us, and I don't think he realizes it, but in 2017, when I stepped in and to take over this company and rebuild it as a legacy company, my father, Romain, was in Miami for the USTOA that was taking place there, and we had an opportunity to meet up in the lobby of the Diplomat at that time. And without hesitation, when he got back home, he knew it was important for us to begin the process of rebuilding and extend it to myself and my family. As you saw the picture, an opportunity to have a personalized fam trip to come out to Tanzania to experience what that country is about and what his company is about. And I can just tell you, I don't think he realizes, but we never forget. We are elephants in this process, and we never forget great gestures. And this man gave us a great gesture, and he's so passionate about what they do and how they do it. And I think you're going to thoroughly enjoy not only meeting Romain, but also hearing how he discusses Tanzania and what they provide. And with that, Romain, unmute, and it's on you, my friend.
Hello, everyone. Next slide, I guess. I think we're going to have a quick message from the director of the tourism board, who we had the pleasure to have about a few weeks ago, and she gave us a little bit introduction about what is the actual situation right now in Tanzania as per tourism.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Devota Mdachi, la directrice générale de l'Office national du tourisme de la Tanzanie. Il y a quelques semaines, un certain nombre de pays ont commencé à lever les restrictions imposées à leurs citoyens de voyager à l'étranger. D'autres pays ont décidé de rouvrir leurs frontières aux touristes pour leur permettre de visiter les attractions touristiques qui étaient fermées pendant plusieurs mois. Avec un immense plaisir, je vous annonce l'ouverture de l'espace aérien tanzanien et la levée des restrictions aux vols transportant les touristes. Les touristes qui arriveront en Tanzanie devront confirmer et fournir une preuve qu'ils sont testés négatifs au COVID-19. La quarantaine obligatoire pour les visiteurs étrangers est annulée. Ils pourront donc visiter les lieux touristiques comme prévu dès leur arrivée. Nous tenons à assurer les touristes qui viendront en Tanzanie que les mesures de précaution nécessaires sont mises en place pour les protéger et pour qu'ils soient en sécurité durant leur séjour et après leur visite en Tanzanie. Permettez-moi une fois de plus de vous inviter à venir visiter la Tanzanie. Venez voir et venez vivre une expérience merveilleuse pendant vos vacances. Tanzanie inoubliable. Tanzania unforgettable.
So yeah, so that was a quick information about Tanzania. I think before we get into Tanzania in details, I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit and why I'm so into the country and the area. So I grew up in Africa. I spent about 15 years in Africa, and I've been working with this DMC Tanganyika for about 9 years now. And I used to be the general manager of the company for about 4 years. So I'm really into it. It's a passion. I still do a safari 9 years later, the same way I did the first time, with big eyes and my camera next to me. So I just think it's very important to see that, especially in this company, we are fascinated by what we do. So I think we can go for the next slide. And the next one. So I think the video is very self-explanatory. There's a lot of information about in this video about the destination, and we go through that. So Tanzania, Tanzania is a symbol, one of the main symbols of a safari in Africa. Tanzania is what you see when you watch The Lion King, when you watch National Geographic. It's located south of Kenya. I think most of you are already aware of it. And it's really one of the major touristic destinations for safari, which is the main products per se, and then other things that we're gonna go through. Next slide, please. So there is the most important thing to start with is how do we get to Tanzania? Now the good thing is the airports are becoming more and more organized, and now we have a lot of major airlines that can get you there. From US, so I think you have some of the most famous one are of course KLM, Qatar, Emirates fly also very well. Turkish Airlines also start to having good connections. There's 3 main airports. Dar es Salaam, which is the less known, I guess, is the economic capital. Then you have Zanzibar. We saw some pictures of the beach earlier, and then we have Kilimanjaro International Airport. So this is the most famous and the most important in terms of tourism traffic, because this is where the safari starts, and we get into that when we go through the map. And this is also where you have the Kilimanjaro Airport. It's very close to the Kenyan border as well. Next, please. A quick note, there is also ways to cross the border by land. A lot of people, sometimes they do a combo of Kenya and Tanzania. And there are few entries where you can do that by land. So one of the main reasons Tanzania is famous is for the safari, and one of the main reasons is what we call the Northern Secrets. So this is north of Tanzania, close to the border of Kenya. The reason is this is where you have the Great Migration, for example, and we're going to get through that a little bit later. You have mostly national parks. So we have examples here with the Tarangire National Park, famous for the elephants. The Serengeti, famous for all the highest concentration of cats in the world. The Lac Manyara, of course, and the Ngorongoro. The Ngorongoro is not exactly a national park, it's a reserve. So this is the only place in Tanzania where the Maasai tribes have the right to live. And it's also extremely famous because this is where we have the what we call the crater, which is in fact a caldera, and it is one of the natural wonders of the world. Next slide, please. So the Northern Secrets consist of, this is example, for example, in Tarangire. The idea of a safari in Tanzania is that you get to see all animals, all experiences that you can really imagine. Whatever you see in the Lion King is really what you can experience on a daily basis. And the Northern Secrets, this is an example. All these pictures here can almost be part of your day-to-day routine. Okay, the rhino is a little bit tricky, but the experience that you have, this is, for example, the Tarangire National Park. Next slide, please. Now we are getting into one of the most important areas that I mentioned earlier, which is the Gong Conservation Area. Here you can see some of the views that you can get. Something very particular about the caldera, what we call the crater of the Gong, is that it's like a natural zoo, and all animals can get in. So within a few square miles, you can get all animals except the giraffe. And that's important because somehow they cannot cross the caldera. Next slide, please. So here, this is a very, very important map. The main reason people go into Tanzania is what we call the Great Migration. And the Great Migration, as you can see in the map, goes around Tanzania the whole year round. One of the reasons it became famous was because July and August, you had what we call the crossing of the Mara River, which is the background of the picture, which happened between the border of Tanzania and the border of Kenya. In reality, the good thing is you can do a safari and experience the migration in Tanzania the whole year round. And what happens is that depending on your months, then we adjust the itinerary accordingly. And that's really one of the main things about Tanzania. You almost guaranteed to have this 2.5 or 3 million wild beasts with zebras that you can experience and literally be in the middle of it. Next slide, please. Another reason Tanzania is famous even if a lot of people think it's Kenya, actually this view is from Kenya, is that we have the Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the highest peak of Africa. It's extremely popular for hikers. It's quite an experience. Next slide, please. You have different routes to get there, really depending on your experience, but you are at least looking from a 4 days if you are very experienced and you are used to the altitude, anywhere between from 4 to 8 days. The reason is we always encourage people to do what we call acclimatization. The reason is one of the main difficulty besides the hiking parts of the Kilimanjaro is how fast you go high. So we always encourage people who are not sure to do this acclimatization. It's 1 day when you just walk around and get your experience. Depending on your level, as you can see on the map, you have different routes that you can take. Next slide, please. The other hikes that you can do in Tanzania, and unfortunately, sometimes people are not enough aware of it. The Mount Meru, which is really located in Arusha, is a 2-3 days hike you can do also. And in the Gong conservation area, one of the particularity of this area is that compared to the national park, you can organize a lot of walking safaris. So in the national park, sometimes you can do 1 hour, 2 hours walk, but in Gong conservation area, you can actually do 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days if you want, walking safari. And then you can do the camping if you want. You have Maasai walking around. You have a ranger, of course. And these are examples. So on the top right, we have the Mpakai area. On the top left, we have the area called Natron, as well as on the bottom left. And the one on the right is close to Arusha National Park. So all of this can be organized in the Gong conservation area. Next slide, please. Another reason Tanzania is absolutely amazing is Zanzibar. So historically, you had 2 countries, which was Tanganyika and Zanzibar, and then they mixed it up in the 60s, and now we have Tanzania. Zanzibar is like in the movies, in a way that it's a living museum. You have a place called Stone Town. There will be a slide later about it, and it used to be, back in the days, the capital of the spices in the world. So it has a lot of cultural feel to it, and it has among the most beautiful beach you can really think of. I mean, the pictures don't even do it justice. I've tried thousands of times to make good pictures about the feeling, and it's absolutely amazing. You have a large choices of properties, whether you want to go for the small, intimate, 3-4 bungalows, or you want to go to the more all-inclusive bungalows. There's a lot of choices, but they manage to do it in a very, very intimate ways. And it's truly an amazing experience. And I believe one of the best food you can think of, because of the influence that you have between India, between the Arabs, and there are also 2 covers. So there's an example of properties that you can find on the Zanzibar side. There's a wide choices of properties there and experiences that you can get. Next, please. These are, so this is us. So we are a DMC for about since 1989. So we finally passed the 30 years. We only specialize in Tanzania. So we can organize anything in Tanzania, but we specialize in the northern circuits. And our idea has always been this, to really be a specialist in something. So we can organize anything in Tanzania. We have, of course, our own vehicles. That's a fleet of about 40 plus. And below you can see some of our offices. Everything is managed on site. There's over 250 people working with us. Next slide, please. Yeah, 250 people. We have our own garage. We have 3 garages, one in Arusha, which is the base of the safari. And we have also 2 garages, one in the Gong, where we have a property, and also one in the top Serengeti. One of the most important thing about this, the most important thing in a safari is the guides, and Michael mentioned it earlier. This is one of the most important things, and the cars. So you want to make sure that everything is taken care of. And there's also a reality on the ground. The reality is eventually something will happen. And what you want to do, you want to make sure that the problem can be solved. you're going to have a flat tire. Now, how fast can you solve the problem? You're going to have a problem with the car. How fast can you solve the problem? And for us, that's always been one of the top priority. The priority is the car and the guide. And actually, I should say the guide and the car. And that's very, very important. One of the things we are also very, I would say very proud of, next slide, please, is sustainable tourism. I think we've been always very in advance in terms of developing projects. I was very lucky when I was working there because I had the opportunity to play around, because the company was really keen on testing new things. Because one day we realized that by being sustainable, we can actually do something good for us, for the clients, and for the country. As I mentioned, we are specialists. We are passionate about the country. All our staffs are local, and we try to develop as many projects as we can. So for example, this is an example of the solar projects. And this is a very interesting project for us because we're the first one back in the days to fully put our camps in fully solar. So anything you can think of, and these are pretty high-end properties. So we decided to go solar. And then eventually, I was back in Tanzania last year, they went even a step further. So now we are managing to do all our logistics fully solar powered. We are talking about washing machine. We are talking about kitchen. We are talking about, sometimes we even have some special ACs for the food. So we are very happy to do that, and it's working pretty well. Next slide, please. So we have various properties all around Tanzania, and for us, it's always been very important, especially for properties that are not inside the national park. So for example, this one is in Bashai, in an area called Karatu, to work with locals and ideally being able to produce our own product. So this is, for example, one of the garden. When I checked last year, I think we are about a quarter of our vegetables were coming from our own garden, and our objective was to get at least half for all the properties. Keeping in mind that we have about 10 properties. So the idea here is to be self-sufficient and you do it in a very sustainable way. Next slide, please. That's one of the projects we started. So it's in Swahili, but this is what we call the tree projects. So we work a lot with villages to help them when they require our help, of course. To talk about planning, to make sure that if we develop an area for, let's say, agriculture, everyone benefits from it. And one of the ways to benefit from it is to make sure that we keep the environment safe, or at least as you know, it should be, especially for the locals. So we have this project that has been going on for 15 years, now a little bit less, sorry, for about 13 years. And yeah, it's been very successful. Next slide, please. As you can imagine, we also work a lot with different schools. So we changed a little bit the way we worked. We used to work before with various NGOs. And then eventually we realized that because we had all these people working with us to build our properties, we realized it would be much more interesting to do it ourselves. So now most of the projects we do in terms of schooling or constructions, we can build ourselves. So when we work with clients, we realized that for almost $10,000, we could build a whole school. So the idea is that we work very closely with every school, depending on the projects, and we ask them what they want. And for us, that is very, very, very important. We always encourage clients to tell us, okay, what kind of project do you want to work? Do you want to work on women? Do you want to work on education? Do you want to work with orphans? And depending on the projects, then we'll approach orphanage and schools and ask them, okay, what do you need? And based on that, then we'll develop projects, and as much as possible, we will do it ourselves if we consider that it's better for everyone. Next slide, please. This is one of our latest projects. It's a very, very exciting project. We were the first one to start the e-safari cars. So these are safari cars, fully electrics. These are old safari cars. Took out the engine, we changed everything, and of course the engine, and now they are fully electric and fully solar powered. So we started testing it about 2 years ago, originally for our night game drives. And then eventually we started doing proper safari with it. And every year we're getting better. We started with 2, and now we have about 6 or 7 electric cars. And one of the objectives within years is to be able to have at least a third or half of the fleet with electric vehicles for specific safari, of course. And this is one of our most exciting projects. Next slide, please. Next slide again. Yeah. So this is an example of typical, even though everything is tailored and everything is private, we only do tailored safari. This is an example of an itinerary that works well. How does it work is that most probably you will arrive in the Kilimanjaro International Airport. Someone will pick you up. You will sleep in most of the time in a property which is located close to the airport. You are looking maximum at about an hour distance. We really don't talk in terms of distance. In Tanzania, we talk in terms of timing because the roads are very different. The situation is a bit different than US or Europe. So it's about an hour maximum, then you will have your night, and then the safari starts the next day. And that's really something that is great in Tanzania. Once you get into the park, you never really leave it. So in this case, you will go close to the Tarangire National Park, which is very famous for the elephants. You're looking at hundreds and hundreds of elephants. It's quite marvelous. Eventually, after that, after 1-2 nights, depending, you will sleep in an area called Karatu. You have a lot of lodges there, and which is very close to the Gong conservation area. And then the next day, the party starts. You wake up and you end up in less than an hour on top of the Gong conservation area. And then again, depending on your program, depending on the location of the migration, we stay in the national park. So we stay in different properties. You can go from camps, you can go from lodges, and I'll show a little bit examples later. And eventually you fly back. We always encourage, depending on the planning, but we always encourage to fly back once you're on top of the Serengeti, in this case, the Kogatende area, which is close to the border. And then you take a flight back to Arusha, and eventually, wherever you can go back home, another destination, or a lot of people will also go to Zanzibar for 3-4 days on the beach. Next slide, please. These are examples of properties. You have 2 main types of property accommodation that you will find during your safari. This is an example of properties that is typical close to the Arusha area, so on your arrival. These are lodges, so this is one of legendary. I think you have a good example. These are mostly very comfortable properties. You are looking at least at 4 stars, 5-star properties in some cases. So this is a lodge. In this case, you have different houses. You can have your private room, or you can even have some houses that have 2, 3, 4 rooms if you have groups or if you have family. In Tanzania, one of the most important things is really the privatization. The idea, we really focus on the experience. So we try to make it as private as possible. Next slide, please. This is an example of what we call a tented camp, which I think is a familiar word. So this is one of a tented camp that is located in Tarangire. You are looking at properties anywhere between 8 tents to 16 tents. That's the average. And to give an idea of the tent, you have a picture on the bottom right. This is one of the tents. So you have full comfort. It's a normal bathroom, normal bed, as you can see on the left. It's very, very comfortable, but always with this feeling of nature. So we don't have any fences. The idea is that you never have fences. In Tanzania, it's forbidden to separate whether the park to the non-park or to the properties. So most of the time you always have, of course, security that goes around, but it's always very, very safe environment. And that's the whole experience, to be in the middle of the nature, to wake up in the morning and have the zebras eating in front of your tent, or the elephants passing by, or in the middle of the camp. Next slide, please. That's an example of a property in Zanzibar. It's a very big property, all-inclusive Zanzibar. You can see, I think, a good example of the kind of sands and experience that you can have in Tanzania, in Zanzibar. Next slide, please. Quick note about us. So on top of being a DMC, which is really our first job, We design programs, we design tailored and private safaris all around Tanzania with a focus on the Northern Circuit. We also have another hat, is that we own and operate our own properties. So these properties are located all around the Northern Circuits, from Arusha, Tarangire, all the way to the northern parts of Kogatende. Next slide, please. I'm going to go very quickly on them, but at least so you have an idea. So this is Meru River Lodge. This is located in the Arusha area. It's about half an hour from the airport. This is our newest property. We took it over about 2 years ago. Very convenient property. Next slide, please. So we have 2 properties in Tarangire National Park. This is a park that is located about an hour and a half from Arusha. So this one is called Maraniga. It was opened about 20-something years ago. It has 16 tents, and it's overlooking a place called the Lake Burunge, and it's relocated on top of the rocks. So that gives one of the best sunset you can think of. Next slide, please. So Basha Reef Lodge, this is a lodge that is located in Karatu. It has over 30 rooms with, as I mentioned earlier, a setup of having a few family rooms. So we have some family rooms of 2 rooms, 3, 4, and 6. So you can have your, if you have a family or a group, we can put them all in their own private house. We can even have organized private dinner for them. We have a huge garden. You have a swimming pool. You have a massage area. Very comfortable. Next slide, please. Old Dubai Camp is our first property. It's located between the exit of the crater and the Serengeti. It's a very famous property for us because this is the only property in the area, and this is a property during the wet season when you can really wake up and have the famous zebra or wild beast running around you or eating in front of your tents. It's a camp of 16 tents. Next slide, please. This is the little brother of Old Dubai that opened about 1.5 years ago. This is an 8-tent property, a little bit more high-end than Old Dubai. This one is very special for us because to get to the camp, you actually have to walk, ideally. And that's why you see the Maasai and the donkeys on the top left. So you arrive in Old Dubai and you have about 500 meters when you will walk with the Maasai and the donkeys, and then you can arrive to your camp. Of course, there's a way to get there by car, but for us, the important part is also the experience. So we always encourage, when possible, for people to live that. Next slide, please. This is Olado Camp. This is a mobile camp. So this is a camp that we set up on demand, anywhere between 2 tents to 8 tents. We set it up on demand anywhere in the Northern Circuit. Next slide, please. This is Ronzo Camp. This is our first camp that was open in Serengeti. It's a 16 tents camp. It's a little bit different than the others. It's because it's more Art of Africa vibes. Everything is directly on the ground. It's pure tents, but you still have the comforts. But it has this feeling of the Art of Africa. You have, as far as I remember, last year there was 12 resident hyenas. So when you go to bed, when the sun goes down, anytime between 8 to 10 p.m., you will have the hyenas singing for you, and eventually some lions around. But of course, the Maasai are here for us. Next slide, please. Grumety Hills is in the northern part of the Serengeti, central north. It's particular because it's a private area, so we are sharing the border with Serengeti. And this is a 17 tents. This is a property where we can also do a night game drive. We do a lot of walking safaris. We have a lot of activities going on Grumety, and it's also one of our logistical center. It's on top of a hill. It's quite wonderful. Next slide, please. Mara River Post is a camp of 16 tents divided in 2. As far as last year, it was the only permanent camp overlooking directly the Mara River. It's one of a higher end property with a pool in the middle, and it's divided into 2 camps. So we can even give the feeling of privatization should we need it, because everything is independent. where only the pool is shared by the both camps, or otherwise everything is independent. The kitchen, the staff is the own team. Next slide, please. So that's about it for me, and hopefully there will be a lot of questions.
Well, Romain, thank you. Listen, that was like a trip down memory lane for me, and it really was. We had such great experience there, and we can't wait to come back. And listen, we can't get enough time to really show. We just did this is kind of the tip of the iceberg, but there's so much more that we can provide and so much more information as advisors want that we can provide an update with in terms of access, properties, as well as experiences through the Serengeti and the Ngorongoro. I remember one of my best experiences when we got to the very top of the Ngorongoro and we're able to look down in this massive old volcano crater. So really love it. Anyways, we have a number of questions. I see we have about 17. I'm going to turn it over to Shane to direct the questions to either yourself or me or one of our other team members. So Shane.
Hello. Yeah, I'm going to pull in the Q&A here. So if anyone has any questions, I'll try and pull them from the chat as well. I saw some people dropping them in there. But if you can drop your questions in the Q&A section, I'll make sure to get them asked live here. And we're just going to start with, here is the first one we got. Where was it? My apologies. It was asking about where the migration was during the month of October.
So I guess I'll take that one. Month of October, you are normally starting to go from the northern part of Tanzania in the area I showed earlier, which is Kogatende, and you already start going south. So you are normally still in Serengeti. Most of the time you are sharing the border with Natron. One thing very important to understand about the migration is that the migration is not a big pack, one single pack of 2.5 million wild beasts. It's different packs of animals. But in October, the rain is over in the northern parts, and then they start going south. The migration just follows the rain. And this is really how it works, and this is really why they do a circle. So in October, you are looking at the center Serengeti.
All right.
And real quickly, I know there was a picture. Can you pull that picture back up as well? Because I think Romain did a great job. It showed what month of the year where the migration was taking place. I think it went clockwise from starting down at the bottom left to give a real good sense. There it is right there. So here you go. So yeah, so why don't you go ahead and explain? You can kind of show. So they were asking about October, November. So it's really up in the northern part of the reserve, correct?
Yeah, so end of September, the migration normally start going south. So most of the time, anywhere between end of July to end of September, you are really focusing on the Kogatende area close to the border of Kenya. And by experience, after it depends each year, but end of September, October, you have them like you see them in November. So they start really going south.
And I remember we were out there in April, March, April, which is kind of is it the end of the rainy season, I guess, March, April?
Well, it depends where, but March, April, it's still the rainy season.
Yeah, we were there for 8 days, 8 nights, and I'm just going to share my experience. It was in March, April. We had 1 day of rain for 1 hour. And other than that, it was, I think that's probably one of the best times of the year to go myself, because even though there's no over tourism in the region, it's even less tourism during those shoulder seasons, if you will, the primary shoulder seasons. And we felt we had access to anything and everything we wanted. It was really nice.
Well, just to a quick note on that, because I think that's a really important point. There's this misconception because in Tanzania, we talk in terms of dry season and the wet season. And people sometimes tend to think that we need to go to the dry season, otherwise it's going to be pouring rain. When we talk about the wet season, this is not like in the movies in the jungle. You don't have so much rain as a non-stop rain. This is really one of the one of the very, very good time to go on safari. Excellent. And it's a very different experience.
Yeah,
to follow up with that real quick, can you highlight when is the rainy season again?
So there's in theory 2 rainy season, but let's say anywhere from November to end of April to make it, generalize a little bit.
Okay. Are U.S. guests able to travel since the country is open?
Yes. So as the director mentioned, people can come in Tanzania. What they have to do is they have to justify of a negative test of COVID-19 of less than 72 hours. And in the worst case scenario, because it happened, they can even do the test in Tanzania on arrival. And also another thing, since we are talking about the virus, there are facilities now in Tanzania, in Arusha, in Dar es Salaam, and in Zanzibar to be able to do a test. Why? Because a lot of countries require their citizens, when they come back home, to have a negative test. So the facilities exist in Tanzania, and it's all privatized, and you can go there, no problem.
Excellent. That's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the next questions is, what is the tipping etiquette?
Alors, there's the recommendation, but again, we are talking about tipping, so it's always a difficult subject. But the recommendation is $20 to $30 per day per car for the safari parts, and it's per car, not per person. That's the average you will get, and after it will depend. If you drink. So on the drinks, you'll give anywhere between $1 to $2 per drink. Honestly, it really depends. In our properties, for example, and I think that's an interesting example, we encourage people, client guests, not to leave tips to the waiter. We prefer them to leave tips to the tip box. The reason is there's a lot of staff on the back that are taking care of the camps. You have the cooks, you have the cleaners, you have the guides. And the Tanzanian for that, and I'm in love with Tanzania, so I could go on for hours, but Tanzania it's a very peaceful country and very respectful country and very community-oriented country. So we always encourage to put it in the box because then they all share together.
Gotcha. Perfect. Any advice or recommendations about Ruaha NP in the south of Tanzania?
Yeah, Ruaha National Park. So you have the Ruaha and you have the Selu National Park that are the two parks on the south. These are very good properties. Yeah, you will need a general map for Tanzania for that. These are two very, very good parks. They are really up and coming. Historically, they were not really national parks. They had other use, to be polite. But now they're fully national park. These are huge national park. Now, the only problem you will have with Ruaha and Selu is two. First, because of the history of these parks, the sightings of animals might be a little bit more challenging because they are less developed and animals have a, let's say, different experience with cars and tourism. And this part is important because you really see the difference. And the second is the facilities. So you have much less facilities in Ruaha and Selu. I've been there and I loved it. I would just strongly suggest that for anyone who would like to go there, I would suggest to do it on your second trip or to do it as an extension. Because I just think it will be weird just to do the Ruaha and Selu, which, by the way, again, are absolutely amazing.
I have a specific one that says, a client is asking if you can characterize the experience of the migration at Meru River in approximately July versus the migration in park at other times of the year.
Versus the migration of what, sorry?
Versus the migration, I guess, is maybe in the park at other times of the year.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons the migration is famous is because of the river crossing. So that was one of the background picture earlier. So in this area that will go from central North Serengeti in our properties called Grumety all the way to Kogatende. Yes, perfect. So whenever you see north of July, all the way to the border, where you see August, September, October, you have a lot of rivers. And because you have a lot of rivers, there's a high probability that you're going to see a river crossing. But that's honestly the only difference. So it's the experience of the river crossing. So the good point about the river crossing is that, yes, you get to see them crossing the river. The thing I like, for example, to doing in other time of the year in the rest of the park is that you have more chances to see huge hordes of them and to have your car literally in the middle because you have the infinite plain. As a reminder, Serengeti literally means in Maasai, the endless plain. So seeing the migration during, let's say, July, August in the river versus seeing it, let's say, in April or in February is just a different experience. And the feeling when it's not crossing the river is just never ending wild beast. And the whole plane is black. And it's absolutely, and sorry for my French, it's insane. It's fantastic.
I didn't realize the word insane was a French word. That's nice.
No, but I'm trying to.
No problem.
I'm fascinated by it. I'm going back the next month.
Absolutely.
All right, so I have a question. I'm not 100% sure the context, so I'm just going to ask it. Are the discounts and schemes valid for tour operators and travel agents in South Africa or worldwide?
You're saying discounts. What do you mean? I didn't understand what the question was. Was a question discounts?
Yeah, it says, hi, are the discounts and schemes valid for tour operators and travel agents in South Africa? I suppose it's about the terms and conditions and possibly
I'll answer that as if it's the commission question. So we don't consider ourselves a discount company. We consider ourselves a value-added company. So when we put the program together, we put it together at a price point that we feel meets your needs and as well as your clients' needs. The commission structure, if that's what the question was referring to, is to what we've done. I mean, we're a very transparent company. What we've decided to do is to take any of our margin to work with our partners and to get the business and the industry going is to forego that. And so we wanted to put more incentive and more opportunity into the pocket of the travel advisor so that we can kickstart the industry again into traveling and being motivated and engaged for 2021. So that's we don't look at giving 18% commission as a discount. We look at it as an investment into helping our travel advisor partners get going for 2021.
Perfect. I think that's what it was aiming at too. What happens if you test positive in Tanzania for COVID?
So if you test positive, you will have a second test. So to be clear, you cannot get in the plane if you are positive. So what happens is that, except there is a problem, normally you have to show a negative test of less than 72 hours to do your check-in and therefore to board the plane. If for some reasons you end up in the plane, which shouldn't happen, and you arrive in Tanzania and you have to do you are tested positive, then you will be put into quarantine.
Romain, let me just ask you a question. So if someone does the 72-hour test before boarding, before departing, they also have to take a test on arrival as well?
No.
Okay, so I think let's answer the question that way then. So the answer to that question is if you have a negative test within 72 hours prior to departing to Tanzania, you are in Tanzania and you are good to go. Now,
exactly.
Coming back to the US, I'm sure that there are going to be requirements for the US so that if you need to do a test to go back to the US, and I don't know the exact answer, we can get that, but going back, there may be a test for the US coming back in. I haven't read anything about that. But again, to go into Tanzania, you need one test, and that is 72 hours prior to going.
Exactly.
And you have a lot of these pop-up stations. The only reason you would take a test in Tanzania is as a backup. If you weren't able to take one prior to getting on the flight, then you would need to take one upon landing in Tanzania. Is that correct?
It is correct. And again, I insist, unless the company mess up, normally you shouldn't be able to enter the plane without a test. But it does happen. Sometimes you lose your paper or whatever. Then you have the facilities to do a test, but they won't let you out of the airports if they are not sure that you don't have the test.
And I think what we're doing is encouraging our travel advisors and their clients to use the application on their phone so that the test is with them, so they don't have to have a risk of losing the documentation. Yeah. So we'll always work on educating and providing as much information for each one of our travel advisor partners.
Fantastic. So question came in from a person who had to leave. They were asking if there will be a replay for the webinar. I wanted to step in and say, yes, the replay will be sent out to all registered and attending or not, as well as being posted on iworldoftravel.com/videos. We have our destination marketing videos you can use with your clients, Facebook, social media, anything like that. And we also have our destination education section, which will be where we put these leadership webinars, and you can see all of the other destinations as well. And then this and all three from the series of In-Depth Africa will be up there shortly.
What's next?
I think that caught us up on the questions I have currently. If anyone has any last minute questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A section. But yes, that was it.
So I think I see something in the chat. What is the best time of year to obtain travel agent rates? Just you have to reach out to us direct. We work with that. Listen, one of the things that remain in our partnership is that they encourage educational trips. We don't call them fam trips, we call them education trips because we don't want them to be viewed as a vacation. It's an education, and they will provide one specifically for our travel advisor partners, as well as we can look at creating one specifically for you, or if you have a host agency, or if we're doing one for ourselves. So just reach out to any one of us, but you can reach out to Z Baton, our VP of Global Sales. That's Z, B as in boy, ITTON at IWorldTravel.com. And again, Romain and his team are very supportive of creating these specific education trips throughout the year.
All right, so that I think that wraps up the Q&A section.
Okay, excellent. Well, listen, Romain, thank you again for your insight and education and for your support as a partner. And I also want to thank all the participants who took the time to join us and to learn what it is that we're doing in terms of our bookings for the Africa region. Tanzania, South Africa, and Kenya is tomorrow, if you're interested in participating with that. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or any one of the team members at IWorld Travel. Thank you again, everybody. Enjoy your morning, afternoon, or evening, and we'll talk again soon. Take care.